Okay, welcome to the Sabby Sabs show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati, and yes, we're going to talk about it. We are going to get into it tonight. Of course, Kanye West has done it again. We're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about this issue with Jim Clyburn not being willing to step down, even though he was asked to do so. So that was news to me. I was not aware of that. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And let's say hello to people in the chat before we get this show on the road. Shout out to Negro489, honestly at a loss for words. I feel the same way. But honestly, it's gotten to the point where now nothing he says surprises me anymore, to be honest with you. What's going on? Angela says, greetings, Sabby and RBN fam. Shout out to Soul. Ye will be ye. He truly needs help, but the people using him will ride him till he's done. Sean says, yep. What's going on, Michael? Sabby, always very nice and informative to hear from you. Thank you so much, Michael. What's going on? The Jammin' 93. Hey, Sabs. Shout out to Eric T. Red. Hey, Friday friends. Greetings, Christian says, hey, Sabby. Shout out to Bad Cookies. Sabby, do you think this is a publicity stunt for his political run? This would be a really bad one. This will be really bad if that's what he's trying to do. I don't know who's advising him, but that would be bad one. What's going on? Bryce says, hello, Sabs. Shout out to Rick says, hey, y'all. Okay, So we're going to cover two stories tonight. I'm telling you, it's just craziness all around. So let's take a look at that thumbnail. Tonight, I am going to discuss Kanye West cringe statement. Kanye is in more trouble here after recent remarks. I'm going to get into that. And I'm also going to discuss Jim Clyburn refuses to step down. So you may be wondering what that's about and why is Nancy Pelosi in that picture with him? So we got to give shout outs to Case Study QB for this one because I was not aware of this. And had he not clipped that, I probably still wouldn't know about it, to be honest with you. So let's get started with this Jim Clyburn story here. So as you know, Nancy Pelosi did decide to step down from Dem leadership. So if she would have not done that, she would have resought her leadership position, but this time for a minority leader because the Republicans won back the House. She chose not to do that. One of the things that she said in her statement when she decided not to return was that it was time for another generation to come through. Well, apparently, she also had that same feeling towards other elder members of Congress. So she didn't just feel this way about herself. She felt this way about others as well. And one of them is Jim Clyburn. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of things tonight because all of you guys know, you've been watching us for a while. You know, I really do not like Jim Clyburn. I actually went to college in South Carolina. I graduated from the University of South Carolina, and Jim Clyburn has always been cringe to me. I never understood people's obsession with this man in South Carolina just because he runs a fish fry or he hosts a fish fry. It's not that big of a deal. You can do your own fish fry, but a lot of people respect him and a lot of people admire him and praise him in South Carolina. Like, it's crazy to me. I'd never seen anything like this before. But the reality is, Jim Clyburn, even though he calls himself a progressive, is not really a progressive. He takes a lot of corporate money and he's kind of out of touch when it comes to situations that people want today. He spoke out against defunding the police and said it was a foolish thing to do. So he was against that. When he was criticized for not pushing the reparations bill that he signed onto like 30 years ago, he was really nasty towards those supporters. I covered that story as well. Jim Clyburn was really nasty towards activists that were asking him to step up and do something for people in his district in South Carolina, which is one of the poorest districts in South Carolina. He was nasty towards them, and he was nasty towards the politician that ran against him. Now, that's Marcel Dixon. He was nasty about him as well. It is very clear to me that even though Jim Clyburn may have done some progressive things in the past, yes, maybe he may have been a part of civil rights as well. The Jim Clyburn that you see today seems to have a bit of an ego, and he seems to think that he cannot be criticized by people in his own party, and he appears to be rather stubborn as well. Now, he went on to win his leadership position again, but that was not what people wanted him to do. Now, let's give a shout out here to Case Study QB for this clip, because again, had he not clipped this, I don't think I would have known about this. So shout out to the case. And let's listen to what they say here in this clip, because I think this is very important for people to hear.
Brian, also want to ask you, it appears that Representative Jim Clyburn has survived his challenge to his leadership position this morning. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. He kind of got a last minute, I should say, challenge from Representative David Cicilline of Rhode Island, who suggested that this new crop of leaders in the Democratic House did not have a representative from the LGBTQ community. And Representative Cicilline is openly gay. He suggested that Clyburn, who's kind of hanging on to leadership after the other octogenarian members of the leadership team had stepped aside, Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer, that Clyburn should follow them as well and allow this next generation of leaders to come through. That challenge really didn't have.
I just want to pause it there for a second because I do want to add Steny Hoyer. He's another one that was ridiculous, is also out of touch, very corporate, not a nice dude. He's another one that was willing to realize, you know what, maybe it's not time for me to be in leadership anymore. Maybe we do need some young blood to come through. So even arrogant Steny Hoyer was able to realize that. Nancy Pelosi realized that. Jim Clyburn does not seem to want to admit that or accept it. So there's a lot of stubbornness here with him. So let's go on. I'm just going to go back a little bit because I paused them here.
Follow them as well and allow this next generation of leaders to come through. That challenge really didn't have a lot of legs behind it. Clyburn has a lot of support from many members in Congress, including the powerful Congressional Black Caucus. Cicilline kind of read the room this morning before the vote took place, stood up and withdrew from the contest, and Clyburn ended up being elected to that position unanimously. So Democrats, this was kind of the first hiccup they had throughout this transition in leadership, and it looks like they've gotten past it and remain unified.
I don't know about the remaining unified part, because that's another piece I want to get into as well. What this shows you is that yet once again, the Democratic Party is not unified. They are not together. There is a split, and it's very obvious. You can tell here like who's on what side and who's on the other side. And you can tell that some of the older, I'm sorry, I have to play it again. Some of the older members of Congress are just too stubborn to step down. And it's not just Jim Clyburn. It's people like Dianne Feinstein. You know, these people who've been there for years, it's like, why are you still there? People who are almost 90 years old still holding on to these seats. And it's not just the Democratic Party, it's the Republican Party too. I think people like Mitch McConnell needs to step down. So it's a problem. Like, you need to have new blood coming through. Now, let's talk about Lady Alex. Age has nothing to do with it, Sabby. It's not necessarily about the age, it's the fact that they're out of touch and they don't understand what people really want today. That is a problem. It is time for them to go. They have outstayed their welcome. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. And I think what should have been the proper thing for Jim Clyburn to do at this point is I think he should have just stepped aside. Like, why are you still there? What Jim Clyburn could do is he could go back to his district in South Carolina and actually try to create some change. Because like I said, it is one of the poorest districts in South Carolina. He's doing nothing for those people. He's living very large in his district. He's doing very well. I lived in South Carolina. The cost of living is lower there. But you look at the people all around in the district and they're poor. A lot of them are struggling. Even the ones that are working class are poor. So don't mention age then. Yeah, you don't tell me what to say. You can start your own show and say what you want. Thank you. So Colin says Clyburn must leave. Yes, he's got to go. He's so out of touch. And thanks for the super chat as well, Colin. I speculate part of the reason Pelosi stepped down because of what happened to her husband, can't afford to have that story in the press as speaker. So I actually did talk to Shahid Buttar about that recently, and that was not the case. This was already planned a couple of years ago. So when she took Speaker of the House in 2020, or that whole force the vote debacle, the plan originally was for her to do it for 2 years and then step down, but still keep her seat. Now, there's a whole other story that goes into her keeping her seat. There's this idea that she may be trying to hold that seat for the next special election so that her daughter can get that seat. But check out that interview I did recently with Shahid Buttar because he goes very deep into that and what the plans are with the Pelosi family there. Now, there's something else I want to show you too, because when I say that Jim Clyburn is out of touch, I want you to see what I mean. Now, I'm going to take you back. We're going to go back a little bit tonight. Some of you may remember this, and some of you may not remember this. But if you don't remember, you will probably remember now. This interview took place 2 years ago with Jim Clyburn. It's one of many interviews that I have discussed about him. And I want you to hear what he has to say here in this interview. This isn't even the one about defunding the police. So just keep that in mind. This is him critiquing socialism and him trying to speak for what people in South Carolina want. Now, again, this is from 2 years ago. Let's revisit. I'm going to show you how he's out of touch.
They mean for South Carolina.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, George. I do believe that Nevada will have somewhat of an impact on South Carolina. All the prior contests do have impact. I do believe, however, though, that South Carolinians know why they're in this pre-primary window. We got in the window because of the demographics of the state and the demographics of the Democratic electorate.
Let's stop there for just a second. So he is talking about South Carolina, because you guys know South Carolina is one of those early primary voting states. One of the things that he just mentioned is they got there because of the demographics of the state. That's a big giveaway. I don't know if people noticed that when he did this interview. South Carolina has one of the oldest electorates. Kid you not. That's one of the reasons why they wanted South Carolina to be one of the early primary states. Because typically, how are those demographics going to vote? That's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons is South Carolina has a larger African American population, and that is a population that the Democratic Party needs in order to win. But that's Clyburn giving it away. Big telling point there. Because he's letting you know why they're in the position that they're in. And ultimately, it was South Carolina that pretty much had decided the race for Joe Biden. Everything changed once you got to South Carolina. Bernie Sanders won Nevada. Next was South Carolina. Joe Biden won South Carolina. And just like that, Joe Biden was back in the race. And let's remember, it was Clyburn who endorsed Joe Biden and told everyone to vote for Joe Biden. Let's go on. There's more revealing moments in this clip.
And we think we reflect that. And we really believe that now that the West and the Midwest and the Northeast have had their say, we are going to let people know how we feel about these candidates. And it may not line up with Nevada or New Hampshire or Iowa.
You've historically been a kingmaker in the state of South Carolina. You said you're not going to make an endorsement before Tuesday night's debate. Does that still hold? And will you definitely make an endorsement after the debate?
Yes, it still holds. I'm going to honor this debate. I don't want to distract from it at all. I want to maintain our first in the South primary status. But on Wednesday morning, I will let my choice be known. I've been asked about it by too many people, and I think I would be dishonorable or New Hampshire or Iowa.
I'll run it back because I realized I had an echo, so I had to mute. Sorry.
We really believe that now that the West and the Midwest and the Northeast have had their say, we are going to let people know how we feel about these candidates. And it may not line up with Nevada or New Hampshire or Iowa.
You've historically been a kingmaker in the state of South Carolina. You said you're not going to make an endorsement before Tuesday night's debate. Does that still hold? And will you definitely make an endorsement after the debate?
Yes, it still holds. I'm going to honor this debate. I don't want to distract from it at all. I want to maintain our first in the South primary status. But on Wednesday morning, I will let my choice be known. I've been asked about it by too many people, and I think I would be dishonorable if I did not tell people exactly what I feel about the candidacy.
Okay. So one thing I want to let you in on, it was already known that he was going to endorse Joe Biden. That was already known. Now, Bernie Sanders did not ask Clyburn for his endorsement. You know, that is something we did talk about, that maybe he still should have asked, even though he didn't think that he was going to get it. But it was already known. Joe Biden and Jim Clyburn were like this. Like, it, for people living in South Carolina, this was known. So keep that in mind, that he just said that he wasn't going to make a statement until after the debate, which he did. But watch what he goes on to say, which is very revealing. Watch this.
Of all of our candidates.
Is South Carolina make or break for Joe Biden?
Well, it's not make or break. It all depends upon how it comes out. It could be. It doesn't have to be. I think make or break was probably the following Tuesday, Super Tuesday.
And as far as Bernie Sanders goes, he built out that coalition in the state of Nevada.
I just want to interject here for a second. No, South Carolina was make or break for Joe Biden. That was absolutely make or break. If Joe Biden would have lost South Carolina and Bernie Sanders won South Carolina, I'm sorry, that was pretty much a wrap for Joe Biden. And Jim Clyburn knew that. Obviously, he wasn't going to say that on air during this interview, but he knew that. So let's just be real. Now he gets into the conversation about Bernie Sanders, and this is a revealing moment. And that's why I said he wasn't going to make an endorsement until after the debate. But then he goes on to say this.
And as far as Bernie Sanders goes, he built out that coalition in the state of Nevada, broader coalition than he had in New Hampshire and in Iowa. But you're already starting to see these attacks for his background as a Democratic socialist. How deep will that cut in South Carolina? And if he's the nominee, do you think it could put the House majority in danger?
A lot of people think so. I do believe it'll be an extra burden for us to have to carry. This is South.
A telling moment here, whenever someone is asked a question and they say, do you believe? And they respond with, well, some people think, some people feel, or a lot of people feel. By the way, when people do that, they're talking about themselves too, a lot of the times, because that was a way of him to answer that question without actually saying that he feels that way too, but he feels that way too. That's politician speak. That was his way of not basically putting himself in that position. So they can't point back and say, well, Jim Clyburn said that. He said that Bernie Sanders socialism is going to be terrible for the House. So that's why Jim Clyburn responds with, well, a lot of people feel that way. Listen, this is someone who is trained to know how to respond to these questions, as you can tell. That's right, Soul. Double speak. That is right. Yeah. Knows how to respond to these questions. He knew not to respond with, well, yes, I do feel that way, or no, I don't feel that way. So he uses those phrases such as, a lot of people feel that way.
I do believe it'll be an extra burden for us to have to carry. This is South Carolina, and South Carolinians are pretty leery about that title, socialist.
Again, he's also talking about himself, not just people in South Carolina. Remember, Bernie Sanders got second place in South Carolina with all the candidates that were running at that time. Second place. So not as many people in South Carolina, not as many South Carolinian residents were that scared off by that title. And this is one of the things that did kind of frustrate me during that time, is that Bernie Sanders was calling himself a socialist. Other people were calling him socialist, and Bernie Sanders really is not a socialist. So that was frustrating to me, because I thought now people are going to have an impression. Well, people who are not aware of what socialism really is, now they're going to have an impression of socialism that's not really socialism. And that was something that kind of frustrated me. You know, it's just like, now they're going to see people who are actually not socialists, and they're going to think these people are far, far, far left. And that's going to be like the goal mark there, like the goal. Oh, man. All right, let's go on.
And so I think that would be a real burden for us in these states or congressional districts that we have to do well in. If you look at how well we did the last time and look at the congressional districts, these were not liberal or what you might call progressive districts. These are basically moderate and conservative districts that we did well in.
Okay, I have to say something about the districts in South Carolina, because I do feel that there's portions that are left out that people may not be aware of if they don't live there. There are areas in South Carolina, although people see it as a red state, it's similar to a lot of other states where if you get out of the cities, those towns usually vote red for Republican. But once you get into the cities like Columbia and Charleston, parts of Greenville, those people tend to vote Democrat. One of the things that isn't mentioned, and of course he's not going to mention this, did you guys know that Bernie Sanders actually did really well in Charleston, South Carolina? Now, a lot of times, again, people see South Carolina like, oh, it's this red state, but you can't forget about those pockets like Charleston, Columbia, South Carolina, which is where I went to college. There's the college, the College of Charleston, which is in Charleston, South Carolina, like the student groups in those areas came out heavily to support to support Bernie Sanders, and went to Bernie Sanders rallies as well. And so I think when people think of South Carolina, they think of this rural, red, rustic kind of place. And yes, there are parts of South Carolina that look like that, but there's also Charleston. There's also Columbia, South Carolina. There's also Greenville, South Carolina. So there's different parts. And those areas were voting blue. So that's just something for people to know. So I don't want people to hear this and think, oh, all of South Carolina is like that. That's not necessarily true. You also have a lot of transplants that have moved to South Carolina that are from blue states. So that's also changed some of the demographics as well. But the big problem in reference to voting and voter turnout in South Carolina is, again, South Carolina has one of the oldest electorates. So because of that, the people who usually show up to vote tend to be people 65 and older, right? And whereas a lot of the younger people who still did support Bernie Sanders, when it came time to vote, the younger people did not turn out. And that was one of the problems, because my family's down there. So I talked to some of my family members. I talked to friends of mine who heavily supported Bernie Sanders, and they'll tell you when they went to vote, most of the Bernie supporters, the younger people, they didn't show up. They didn't bring out the numbers, and that could have helped. I don't know. I feel like that would have helped. But what's that, Mika? A lot of transplants in upstate South Carolina. Exactly. So I think that really hurt Bernie as well, not having that strong young voter turnout. So that was an issue. And then also, of course, Clyburn's endorsement of Joe Biden also was very telling.
Socialist. And so I think that would be a real burden for us in these states or congressional districts that we have to do well in. If you look at how well we did the last time and look at the congressional districts, these were not liberal or what you might call progressive districts. These are basically moderate and conservative districts that we did well in. And in those districts, it's going to be tough to hold on to these jobs if you have to make the case for accepting a self-proclaimed democratic socialist.
Congressman Clyburn, thanks for your time this morning.
So again, that was kind of his way of telling you who he was going to endorse without saying it. So the writing was already on the wall for people who are not aware. Now, there's something else I want to show you about Jim Clyburn, because I did see this message and I already had planned to show you this information, but this will lead right into it. Thank you for the super chat. Jay, how can Marcel Dixon win strategy-wise? This is very difficult. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. There are two big problems. One, as I mentioned earlier, Jim Clyburn has a lot of support. And I want to explain what I mean by that. He doesn't just have support of his constituents. Jim Clyburn has the support of the Black church. He has the support of Black fraternities and sororities. So that is hard to compete with. It really is. I'm just going to be honest with you. And this is someone who people know him. Like, he's been there like his whole life. And he's also fought for like civil rights at one point. I told you guys about that before. So a lot of people do know him in not just his district, but in the state of South Carolina. He is well known. Now, there's more. The second part that is going to be difficult, and that leads me into the document I'm going to show you, is the money. Jim Clyburn is corporate. He takes a lot of corporate money, and he particularly takes corporate money from certain industries. And I want to show you what that looks like. because this is the part that is hard to compete with if you are going to run a grassroots campaign, or if you're just a new candidate and let's say you're not running a grassroots campaign, it's going to be hard for you to get even some of those corporations to donate to you that are already donating to Jim Clyburn. So let's take a look at that and see what that looks like. And then I think you'll understand why someone like Marcel may have had a harder time. Money is everything. Most of the time, the person with the most money wins. Most of the time, not all the time. More money means more ads. More money means that you can have not just TV ads. I'm talking about radio ads. I'm talking about more flyers in people's mailboxes. So the more money you have, the more advertisements you're going to have. And it's tough to compete with that and fight against that if you don't have the money. It's tough to combat those ads, and those ads are very expensive. So there's that. But also, he has certain donors in his back pocket. So let's take a look at this. All right, so this is on Open Secrets, public information. You guys can see this as well. So this is Jim Clyburn, real name James. That's his government name. So I want to show you the top industries that donate to Jim Clyburn. Now, this is for 2022. Let's go down. Top 20 industries. This is where the problem comes in. See if I can make the numbers bigger for you guys. Is that better? Yeah. Number one, lawyers and law firms. This is not just individual donations from lawyers and law firms. This is also PACs. He's taking PAC money from them too. That's number one. So altogether, he's getting over $169,000 from lawyers and law firms. So there you go. You got lawyers in your back pocket. That's going to help you a lot. Here is the most troubling one. And this is the one that people usually complain about in reference to Jim Clyburn. And that's the insurance industry. Now, Jim Clyburn took over $133,000 of the insurance industry. And yes, 8,000 of that came from individuals. And by individuals, what I mean is individuals who work for that industry. But look how much money he took from PACs, from insurance PACs, over $125,000. Over $125,000 from insurance. So Jim Clyburn is one of the politicians in Congress that takes the most money from Big Pharma. You have to know that. You have to understand that. And once you understand that, then you'll understand why he's not for Medicare for all. That's not something he would support. So even though people in his district, some of his constituents, don't have health insurance, have inadequate health insurance, have health problems that they can't afford to pay for, have medical debt, some of those same people continue to vote for Jim Clyburn, and he's in the pocket of Big Pharma. He's taking money from the same industry that's crippling you. My advice, if you're in that district, is to try to educate people about that as much as possible. Because if you have people in your district and they're trying to ration their insulin, but you're taking all this money from Big Pharma and they can barely afford to just pay for insulin, that's a problem. That's right, Robin. Clyburn is so corrupt. That's right. And I told you, he's in the pocket of the church and the sororities and the fraternities. And in the South, that is going to be hard to compete with. Third is electric utilities, over $128,000. And again, you'll see the majority of the money is coming from the PAC. That's $126,000. Whoops, I didn't mean to highlight that. Yeah, $126,000 here. Next is securities and investment, lobbyist, retired, pro-Israel. Watch this. Now that's industries. Let's look at something else. See what open secret you can. Campaign committee only. We can go to combined. It's like to show people. Actually, I want to go contributors. It's easier that way. Okay, contributors. So again, if you want to look at this individually, top 20, this one should send a big red flag considering what's going on with Israel and Palestine. American Israel Public Affairs Committee. You see this? And I'll scroll down. I'm going to show you one of the health insurance. He has Aflac. He takes money from them. And there was another one. Neurofarm Pharmaceuticals. Let me make sure I didn't pass. Microsoft, of course. And then Price Water. Oh, God. PwC. United Health Group. You see the problem? So the point that I want to make to you is this. As long as you have corporate money in politics, it is going to be very difficult for progressive issues like Medicare for all to pass. 9 times out of 10, they're not even going to bring the bill to the floor for a vote. 9 times out of 10, because there are too many politicians in the House that are in the pocket of Big Pharma. It's an ongoing problem. Ongoing problem. Let me go to some of the comments here. Oh, I saw that one. Thank you for the super chat. SN, RBN works so hard. Please be careful. Don't burn out. Thank you so much. And thank you for the super chat, Jay. He's a poverty kingmaker, Lord of the poor. Yeah, it's really sad. Like it's sad to see someone living that way. Like they have everything that they need and more. And the people in their district are struggling, you know? Thank you for the super chat, Brian. Why not start an FPA, Faux Progressive Award? You can send it to Bad Progressives for Failure. This will get the channel more attention and increase membership. Subscribers can all vote. I'll mention that. I'll mention that to CJ and Nick and JB and Rome. That's funny. That is interesting. Thank you so much for that. So until you fix the money situation, that's why, no. That's why I said they were never going to let someone like Bernie Sanders win. Now we're moving on to our second story here, which is Kanye West. Kanye has done it again. He's made some incredibly cringe remarks on Alex Jones' show. I don't know why he went on there anyway, but I'm going to say this. Anytime that Alex Jones tells you, whoa, that's a little bit too far. That's a little bit too far. Anytime he says that to you, there's a problem. There's a problem. But this problem did not just start with Kanye West. JB and I have talked about this before. This has been a problem for a while. It's been a problem for years. And I want to take you back to a moment. Oh, whoops. I'm sorry, guys. I clicked on the wrong link. Balls. Hold on. Okay, yeah, I thought so. All right. I want to take you back to a moment where a lot of us in the Black community tried to warn people about Kanye West back then. You know, unfortunately, this situation did not get as much outrage from people. There was outrage, but nothing like it is right now. Nothing like it is right now with Kanye West. So I want to remind you of a moment where we all tried to warn you that there was something not right with Kanye West. Let's go back. Hit that like button. Some people forgot about that. I didn't. And a lot of the people coming after Kanye now, when this happened, they were silent. Let's go on, because I will give credit to one of the employees at TMZ, because he did actually step up and say something, which I don't think is easy to do, right? He could have lost his job for doing this, but he did it anyway. Never forget this. Never forget it. Because I've seen people on Twitter saying, Black people need to say something about Kanye West. We tried to warn you about Kanye West when this happened. But let's go on. See, this is the part right here. I forget his name, but this is the part right here where he went above and beyond, like, right? Like he had to stand up and say, hey, to everybody, the TMZ employees, do you feel that I'm free, that I'm not being free? Do you feel that? What was the point of that? What was the point of that? Let's go on. So it took a lot for him to say that, for Van to say that. Because again, like I said, he could have lost his job after saying that. But what he said was true. But you know what's sad? When you look at what's happening with Kanye West today, did he learn anything? He didn't learn anything. Something is not right here. And when I show you the clips that just happened recently, you're going to look at me like, what the hell, if you have not seen them yet. But there's something off. Okay. So even then, he was told he needs to be responsible. This is nothing new with Kanye West. I still remember, and I don't know how old everyone is in the chat, but I still remember when Kanye West said George Bush does not care about Black people. Do you remember that? This was after Hurricane Katrina. How did he go from that to slavery was a choice to what I'm about to show you next? Because to me, it just does not add up. It's very weird. There's something off here. So let me go ahead and show you this, because this is the moment that sent, I think, a lot of people over the edge. First of all, he went on the Alex Jones show. He also went on the Tim Pool show. And I got to say this. I think people need to stop doing this. Stop bringing him on your show. You're just, I'm sorry, but, and I know why they're doing it. I know why they're bringing him on, but stop bringing him on your show. Like, this is not helping anybody. Is Kanye West getting helped by going onto your show? When the conversation that he had with Tim Pool, when he walked out on, he was only there for 20 minutes. The conversation that he had with Tim Pool, the conversation that he had with Alex Jones, is Kanye West getting help from these conversations? No. He becomes more and more unhinged every interview he goes on. So what is the point? So he went from saying George Bush doesn't care about Black people to saying that slavery was a choice to saying this. This is crazy.
Well, that's right. You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi. You don't deserve to be called that and demonized.
Well, I see good things about Hitler also. I love everyone, and Jewish people are not going to tell me you can love us, and you can love what we're doing to you with the contracts, and you can love what we're pushing with the pornography. But this guy that invented highways, invented the very microphone that I use as a musician. You can't say out loud that this person ever did anything good. And I'm done with that. I'm done with the classifications. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table.
Let me be clear here. That's not what this is about. Kanye knows damn well the statements that he's making are going to be seen as controversial. He knows that. Look at how far this has gone. Now you see why. What's with the face covering? Why is he wearing a ski mask over his face? We all know it's you. What are you hiding for? This doesn't make any sense to me, you guys. Like, I really would like to sit down and talk to a psychiatrist or some type of therapist about this behavior. I would like to pick their brain and ask them, like, what do you think is going on here? If something is off, either he really, really, really needs attention, an attention seeker, or there's mental illness here at play, which I had said before. But something is off. And I'm starting to think this appearance here with him in the ski mask, I'm starting to think that he knows exactly what he's doing. I'm starting to think this is intentional. Let's go on.
Especially Hitler. How about that one? Ari Emanuel, how you like that one? Hey, Ron, you going to do anything to fix Chicago? They want to separate and confuse the Christians and make us afraid to stand next to each other. A Christian can stand next to anyone. We can go visit R. Kelly in prison. We can go talk to Harvey Weinstein.
That's what Jesus did.
Yes, because Jesus can save everyone. But if the Zionists can get us so afraid that they're going to do what they've been doing to me, attempting to put me in jail, freeze my accounts, smearing me on the media, you know, all of these things, you know, you put on the whole armor of God and they will not be able to break your spirit.
Well, that's right. You're not Hitler.
There's more. There's more. This one is also terrible.
Schwarzenegger said he loved Hitler. They gave him an award. I'm just saying, I don't like Nazis, and I don't like what some of the mafias are doing either.
I like Hitler.
Schwarzenegger said he loved Hitler. They gave him an award. I'm just saying, I don't like Nazis, and I don't like what some of the mafias are doing either.
I like Hitler.
You guys see the problem? You see the problem? That's right, bad cookies. That's right. Raziel said, my man's lost his mind. Like, he's hanging out with white supremacists. Like, for reals. Now, there's more that happened during that interview as well. There's other things that he said. Some of it I cannot play on here. But after this appearance, apparently he went on to tweet a swastika and he was suspended from Twitter yet again. Let's go ahead and get into that. It's crazy shit, man. I really can't. I don't know what else to say. Like, this is really mind-boggling and it's a problem. But I really do think he needs help. And I've been saying this for years. I've been saying it for years. Make it make sense. Make it make sense how a black man is friends with white supremacists. Here we go.
formerly known as Kanye West, has been suspended on Twitter by Elon Musk after posting anti-Semitic images that Musk says violates the platform's policy against inciting violence. Yahoo Finance's Dan Halley is here with more. Dan, what do we know about the extent of the suspension and ultimately what this signals for Twitter and their own policies going forward too?
Yeah, I mean, this really is kind of an unprecedented time. This guy has the ear, or I guess had the ear of Elon Musk. Kanye West posted a text message between him and Musk, where Musk basically, criticizes him for this post that he put up, which was a swastika inside of a Star of David. This followed Kanye West's wild tirade about Hitler on Alex Jones, a conspiracy theorist show, basically praising him. And so now he's just fully suspended. We don't know how long the suspension is going to last. There's no bans. He's suspended, just like we had seen other accounts suspended on Twitter before. No one's ever been fully banned forever. But, this just kind of comes at a time where, Musk has that blanket amnesty issue going on, where anybody that didn't say anything illegal or wasn't exceptionally spammy is allowed to come back on. Those thousands of accounts will be able to come back. And at a time where, you're talking about Twitter and Elon Musk and how he wants to be saying he wants to be a free speech absolutionist, but then having this kind of come out, someone that he's been in contact with, it really does kind of slap him in the face. And as I said, there was that text message exchange between the two. So this was someone that he clearly had spoken to and he welcomed back onto the platform not more than a few weeks ago.
Yeah, not more.
Yeah, so I do want to remind you guys, like, he was already suspended before. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, he brought Kanye West back to Twitter. And now he's suspended again. So I don't know if it's a permanent suspension or not, but something I was thinking about earlier today, Kanye West has 4 kids with Kim that I know of. Some of his children are old enough now to know what's going on. And I wonder about the effect it has on his kids, like seeing their dad say these things, seeing their dad hang out with white supremacists. Make it make sense, guys. This is irresponsible, not only because obviously he's hanging out with white supremacists and he's making these comments about Hitler and about Nazis, making it seem like these are okay people. They're not okay. Their beliefs are not okay. But on top of that, you have biracial children. And let me be clear here. Your children, Kanye's children who are biracial, are going to be treated the same way that Black people are treated. I want to be very clear. This is ridiculous. They're going to be treated the same way. Yes, their parents are famous, so they may have some things, economically, financially. But at the end of the day, they're still going to be treated the same way that Black people are treated. Just because they are biracial doesn't mean they're going to be treated differently. And I will be very clear about that. And it's a slap in the face to see your father. He's hanging out with Nick Fuentes, who also white supremacist. Hanging out with Milo, also white supremacist. Make it make sense, guys. What do you say to the kids? What does Kim say to the kids? What do you say? What happens when the kids go to school? What do they say to the friends when the friends say, why is your dad hanging out with white supremacists? Does your dad not realize he's Black? Kids are very blunt. So it's a problem. It's a problem. And I don't know. But I said it before that I don't think it's just about maybe there may be a mental illness. He's brought that up before, that he decided to get or he didn't get a second opinion, but he said that he didn't believe it. But there's something else at play here, man. There's something just a little off, a little off. Yes, Kim, we've talked about Garland Nixon. We've talked about that multiple times. But there's something just off here. But to that point, Twitter did suspend Garland Nixon. They suspended Garland Nixon for a joke. I saw the tweet. There was nothing racist there. They won't let him come back. He got a permanent suspension. It's crazy. It's freaking crazy. Let me go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Colin. Kanye has said he doesn't read, so you can't take him seriously. That makes sense. And thank you for the super chat as well. This is sad because Kanye is a father. He should be helped instead of being exploited. I feel bad for his children who will see that. That's the point. You know, they have to have seen it now. I do believe North is probably, see how old she is now. He's 9, so yeah. I mean, I know when I was 9, I knew what was going on. So very sad, very sad. All right, guys, I am about to head out. Go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. And I want to make sure I shout this out. Oh, nope. Oh, I think I already did this already. Oh, I did already shout it out. Okay, never mind. All right, guys, if you want to see more Sabby, I'll be back on my channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Misty is going to come on. She's with Action for Assange. She's going to talk about the media, mainstream media, recently coming out saying that Julian Assange should be freed. So this is new. So she's going to give her take on that. She's probably one of the biggest Assange activists that I know. And then we also has news stories as well. I'm going to break down this railroad strike, these railroad strike votes, and the statement that came from the railroad union today. We're going to cover that. There's some conflicting stories here coming from different people that I've noticed. So we're going to break that down, and then I'll do call in after the show tonight as well. But other than that, have a good night. Keep up the fight.